and gentlemen, stand up and get loud for the greatest talk show in television history, everybody.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Fans Talk Pro Wrestling. This is episode 410, being recorded on Wednesday night, February 7th, 2018. My name is Nick, and with me this week, as always, is Adam. How's it going, Adam?
Not too bad, Nick. How you doing?
I am doing all right, although, as our first news story will indicate, not everybody is doing all right. Tonight, our subjects are going to include the Cruiserweight Championship Tournament that is well underway, and it's pretty hot action. This is the most excited I've been to watch 205 Live in a while. We're also going to be talking some Elimination Chamber build, as well as other happenings going around in the world of professional wrestling. But our first news story of the evening involves one Shelton Benjamin. It looks like he had an unwelcome surprise in his rental car after having driven it around for 4 days. He saw that the rental car had left a loaded gun in the glove compartment of his vehicle. And under any circumstance, I imagine that would be a pretty unwelcome surprise. But add to that the fact that if he gets pulled over as a black man and he says he doesn't have anything in the car, and should they search it, there's a loaded gun. That's kind of a recipe for disaster, and that's a huge fuck up by the rental car company. Have you ever had anything like that happen to you, Adam? I haven't,
No.
And I'd be scared as shit if I found something like that.
Yeah, no, I would definitely be, at the very least, obviously, initially shocked to see something of that nature. It's very lucky that, it's unfortunate that we live in the day and age where the situation that you described is a very easy possibility. But Shelton Benjamin seems like a pretty straight-laced dude for the most part. I don't recall a ton of controversy following him around for his previous career. So still lucky that, he didn't just get pulled over for some stupid frivolous reason, but also cool that he's, not the type of guy that would attract any sort of, unfavorable attention for no reason, hopefully.
Depends on what area of the country he's rolling through.
Of course. I have no idea where Raw and SmackDown are or have been within the last 4 days. So
I think they were in Kansas last night.
Okay, that's kind of middle of the road, I guess you could say. It's not quite southern enough to be super fucked, but, and by the way, I love all of our southern listeners, so not trying to typecast anybody here, but, things
Just keep digging, man. Just keep digging.
Yeah. This is a landmine that I find myself in now, so, or a field of landmines, I should say.
A silver lining is that Mia Yim and their ongoing social media war did not allow the potential consequences of being found with a loaded gun to deter her from just giving him endless shit online about it.
Sure.
I love their interactions. Like, this was absolutely a very serious incident, but props to her for keeping it lighthearted.
A little bit more, I think, bringing it closer to home. It's a good thing that, through some way, shape, or form, the WWE didn't get wind of that before Shelton Benjamin did, because I feel like that would be a lot of blowback too. Like it plays to be, regardless of how honest Benjamin may be, it plays to be, well, that seems very circumstantial that, if I don't know, someone from WWE was somehow able to find that gun before he did, they'd be like, well, I didn't know about it. That puts him, even if he's being honest, which I think he is, that still puts him in very hot water. So,
that's just on the rental car company. Like, I don't know if Shelton Benjamin owns guns, but.
Well, sure. But I think it would be a very long and unfavorable process to determine the truth of all that, is what I'm saying. Like that, even though maybe down the road it wouldn't necessarily affect him, that knee-jerk reaction could still have been very bad. So I'm glad that it all worked out in the end.
Our second news story is a little more show related. There've been some rumors bubbling around online that the WWE was wanting to put together another tournament in the vein of the Cruiserweight Classic, the Mae Young Classic, and the United Kingdom tournament. This one was supposed to be completely Latin American centric. So like stars from Mexico, Central America, South America, like it would have focused on them. Whether they would have gone for people like Kalisto, who are American, but like place a heavy emphasis on their Latin American heritage, who knows? But apparently that really never was in the works. Like that was just a ton of scuttlebutt. And William Regal took to his Twitter account to say as much. Which is interesting because he usually doesn't do that. I follow the man on Twitter, and like between reminiscings of like old time British wrestling, World of Sport, like Big Daddy, Rollerball Rocco, guys like that, and just like talking about his lizards, like that's pretty much all he does. And for him to step forward and like put on the suit and tie, so to speak, and say, "All right, this is absolutely not happening. Y'all don't know what you're talking about." Like, I think that just adds a little more credence to the idea that as cool as it might be to have a Latin American centric tournament, it's just not happening right now. But even if that were to happen, how would that even work? Like, I don't know of big time wrestling. Like, I don't know of any real wrestling scenes down in South America or in Central America, like Mexico, obviously, but
right.
And I've seen bits and pieces of like wrestlers from Chile, from Argentina, from Brazil. Like back when we had our Google Plus community, like there was a guy, a pro wrestler that would share a lot of footage from matches that he had down in Chile, and that was really cool to watch. But I don't know how much traction that had. Like I don't know how much of a following like Patagonia Professional Wrestling or something like that. I don't know what kind of following they had. So like, what would this guy even look like? Like, do you think that could be viable in the future?
I mean, I definitely think any tournament that WWE decides to host on their network is pretty viable now. I mean, we've had 3, all I think would be deemed at middling success, and personally, I would rank them much higher than that. But even I think the most curmudgeonly wrestling fan would still mark those as all successes. So I think that alone is, for me at least, it's interesting enough to want to tune in to yet another one, whether this is Latin American themed or any other theming they decide to do. I mean they've they say 3 strikes you're out, but in this case I think 3 times the charm, 4 times the charm actually, because I haven't disliked any of them. And while I do agree that I don't necessarily have a ton of knowledge of the wrestling scene in South America, I do think that there's a certain showcase to these things. There are many of the talent that have showed up in past tournaments I haven't had a huge wealth of information about. With maybe a handful, like 3 to 4 that I have at least heard their name or have followed them other places before. And, I'm often pretty surprised by the talents that I haven't heard of showing up in WWE and kind of plying their trade, at least for the tournament, and possibly going on even further. So I think it's viable. I definitely think it's probably a little bit harder sell than, the UK, than a hotter market like the UK or, the women's or the cruiserweights, which. And,
yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm wondering. Because you mentioned like each of those past tournaments had those handful of names that people in general would recognize, not just diehards, like people. Like right. The Cruiserweight Classic, you had your TJP, the Zack Sabre Jr., the Kota Ibushi. The women's, you had Candice LeRae, Mercedes Martinez, Mia Yim. With the UK tournament, you had guys like Trent Seven, Pete Dunne, and Tyler Bate that had, gained a little bit of notoriety outside of their home promotions. With this potential tournament, like, who would those names be? And they'd have to be guys that CMLL and AAA don't have their hooks in already.
Yeah,
Like,
sure.
do they use like Raul Mendoza again, or like I can't even really think of anybody like Cesar Bononi. Like, he's been on NXT TV a few times. I just don't know who that core that people would know would be made up of.
I think I don't know what his contract status is, or I know even though Garvin and I are very optimistic about it, I don't really honestly know the legitimacy of a season 4 of Lucha Underground. So someone like a El Pentazero M, who's been working quite a few different indies, would be, I think, a pretty huge get if he's possible to be gotten, which I'm not entirely sure of, but I'll be optimistic about it.
That's true. I think the Lucha Bros are currently unsigned.
Yeah.
And
So I mean,
I'm seeing Dragon Lee in the chat, and like, that's not happening. Like, as far as I know, he's still a CMLL talent.
Sure,
That'd be amazing, but
sure. But yeah, I do think, and honestly, you say Pete Dunne and Tyler Bate and Trent Seven. I mean, I didn't have any knowledge of them, as I would consider myself to be a relatively casual fan, and I was pleasantly introduced to them, I feel, through the WWE talent, and so I kind of feel like the success of the tournaments past is going to take a little bit more of the load of promotion than the name value this time, if they do it. And at least for me personally, I can't speak for every wrestling fan out there, like, they won me over. I'm curious enough to check it out without really knowing a lot of the guys to get to know them, because I mean, I feel like I've gotten to know a lot of the talent that I didn't know before previous to this, and it's turned out pretty well overall, I would say. So for me, at least, I think there is a viability to it. I think the market is a little bit less so agreeable, but I do think that there's enough promotion and buzz around what the network is doing with tournaments in general to kind of cover any deficiencies that may have.
that's entirely possible. One final bit of news from this week is kind of a nice way to end, even though the subject matter is kind of worrying. So around the time of the Royal Rumble, we started hearing that Jason Jordan was having neck issues and like a back injury or something along those lines. And he hadn't been working house shows. Like, he'd been showing up. He was out there at the ring for like tag matches, but he wouldn't tag in. And his performance at the Rumble kind of bore that out. He tagged in that one time after he got thrown into the post, looked like he got really dizzy, and he tagged back out and he sat down on the steps. Like, we knew something was up.
Sure.
Like, there's no way that would have happened otherwise. Later, we would start hearing stories about how he's having grip issues, that he's having neck issues. And ultimately, we learned yesterday that he was having neck surgery. And that was successfully completed. No word on like recovery time, like what the actual issue is. The thing I saw was like he had an injury to a disc in his neck. So that could be a lot of things.
Sure.
But yeah, we're getting the story that it was successful. So hopefully it won't take a long time for him to be back. I have seen ideas thrown around about what could be done with Jason Jordan while he's still recovering. One of those was name him the assistant general manager to Kurt Angle. Like, I think there could be a lot of fun that you would have with that story. Mm-hmm. And I feel like there's only one way that could go, at least as far as a heel face dynamic. But like, what do you think? Do you think that would be something worthwhile to pursue? Like, do you have anything else in mind for Jason Jordan?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, that is heartbreaking. I think it's pretty safe bet that he's out of any sort of WrestleMania angle outside of something outside the ring. I don't think he'll be competing. Any plans that they might have had for a blow off to, whatever they've been doing with him and Kurt Angle and maybe Triple H, I think are, I'm not going to say completely done, but he will not be involved in an in-ring capacity. Maybe they might still do Angle versus Triple H at Mania. But
Yeah,
I
maybe he shows up to throw Triple H off.
Maybe, or I don't know. I guess maybe he could work as the ref, but even that seems a bit shaky, so I doubt it. And that's a shame. I'm sure that is just devastating for Jason Jordan to get the news of. Miracles can happen. I don't know. I mean, if he's Kurt Angle's son, Kurt Angle pulled it off in 2 months. So, possibility, I suppose.
And I'm seeing a little bit more than was available when I first looked. It seems like the procedure they did wasn't a terribly complicated one. It wasn't really invasive. Like it was a lot of decompression of nerves that were affected.
Sure.
So while there was no timetable given, it sounds like the procedure wasn't involved enough. Like maybe he could be back in time for Mania. Like maybe not for a full-on match, but
right. It's possible. I would definitely say that. I also will say that I know that WWE is extremely skittish with any sort of neck injury. So while he may be medically cleared in the most technical sense, I have a very strong feeling that he will be unlikely to compete at Mania. But he may be involved in some other way. Getting back to the original question at hand, I do think that's a great idea to have him be an assistant GM or, just an assistant in general, similar to, the Coachman McMahon days of the early aughts and whatnot. I think that's a good idea. I think he has enough like character chemistry to pull that off. They've already kind of started to not outright turn him heel, but definitely give him that like over cockiness and just kind of leaving a slightly bitter taste in your mouth when you see his interactions when you saw his interactions with Seth and with Kurt and everybody and the rest of the Shield and whatnot. So I think that's a good way to turn. And I think if he's going to be out for a long time, you could at least potentially build to SummerSlam with that and hopefully get the payoff with him and Kurt there, or possibly even, as far out as Survivor Series or next Mania. I think you can milk that for a long time without putting Jordan too much at risk. The only thing I would say against that is I know that WWE has a habit of when they do those off-screen characters, eventually they have to take a pretty hard bump as comeuppance. So I hope that in that case that they wait longer than sooner to do that. But outside of any of those really minor nitpicks, I think that's a great idea.
One last question. Do you think that they change Jason Jordan's music for when he comes back?
I don't think I've paid close enough attention to what his music is now to have any sort of strong feeling about it, but sure. I mean, if he needs it, then yeah.
I am personally hoping that they do. Like, I'm not a huge fan of it in the first place, but it's very similar to Roman Reigns' music, and the second that it hits, it's recognizable enough that immediately everybody starts booing right then and there.
That's a bad sign. And I feel like if I don't remember it enough, it's probably a fairly generic track line that they usually give to people like Jordan or Big Cass or something like that when they're really unsure if they're going to, especially if they've been a part of a tag team for a very long time, when they're unsure if they're going to catch and if there's really any worth to putting a ton of energy into their promotion. I think Jordan has proved that he is definitely worth that and should probably get an upgrade from just generic I'm a wrestler
rap.
Yeah, to something a little bit more indicative of his character.
Yeah, please somebody do better than like if the garbage XFL opening rap was about Kurt Angle, that would be Jason Jordan's theme.
I wouldn't mind it if they
need something better.
I wouldn't mind it if they blew the dust off of Kurt Angle's rap that he did for the Originals album. That would be outstanding. And I think it'd fit his character, actually.
I think that'd get a pop.
Yeah, I think so too.
All right. So let's start digging into the happenings of pro wrestling. I suppose to kind of get it out of the way, like I didn't watch it. But this week's mixed match challenge, or mixed matchka challenge rather, was between Naomi and Jimmy Uso against Lana and Rusev. Team Uso won. So hooray, a SmackDown team finally did it.
Whoop, whoop.
It is upsetting that Rusev once again gets snubbed, but you know, them's the breaks, especially when Lana is your partner.
Sure. I mean, I just feel like the mixed match challenge as a whole has kind of been a pretty big letdown. I keep forgetting that it even freaking exists when I come to the podcast. So I haven't watched anything about it. But looking at the people that have moved on, I mean, it really feels like those are the right teams to move on. I think maybe with the exception of Nakamura and Natalia, because it seemed like they had a pretty good little groundswell of excitement from the videos they were doing outside of it. But they were going up against Finn Balor and Sasha Banks, so I think they were trying to lead strong with that match to begin with. And I don't know if there's actually a huge deficit to either one of them advancing. Like both of those teams, I think are at least in name value, you know, pretty big deals. So yeah. I mean,
I feel like there was actual crowd support behind Nakamura and Natalia, whereas Balor and Banks is one of those.
It's hype train. Yeah, it's hype train.
Balor and Banks is just a team of, they talk about us like we're big deals, but we don't actually do anything anymore.
Exactly.
And Natalia, like, embodies that, but, you know, she was paired with Nakamura, who now is the winner of the Royal Rumble, and, like, they just worked so well together. Like, Nakamura wearing her dad's jacket out down to the ring, and Natty taking on like the Nakamura taunt to the point where Nakamura is like, okay, that's enough. You just scale it back, dial it back just a little bit, just a little.
Yeah.
Like
Let's not forget.
Between those two and Biggie and Carmella, I don't know who is the better team, but absolutely in the first 2 weeks, the best teams were eliminated. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I don't know. I guess, like I say, looking at it from a name value standpoint, it makes sense that the teams that won are advancing, but also it seems like the ones that like you said, got some legit crowd support through social media and stuff, were the ones that ended up losing, you know? So that's, I don't know. It's a weird track. I just feel like once this whole thing is over, like, who cares kind of thing, you know? It doesn't feel like there's any, like, I know they get a big, like, in kayfabe award, the team, you know, like a cash prize and all that, but I don't think it's going to be made a big deal on the main roster shows, so it kind of makes me not care.
Yeah, and that's really too bad, because some of these pairings, like, I want to see where this goes.
Yeah.
Hold on. I just realized that I was absolutely incorrect with this week's result, because it was not Lana and Rusev. I don't know why I thought it was. It was Team Rose Gold, Goldust and Mandy Rose.
Oh, that's right.
I don't know where I got that from.
You're just
I didn't look this up at all. I just
so
pulled
ready
it from memory,
Rusev
and
to be pulled down from Lana that just want to get it over with.
It's not even that. Like, I've been seeing those two in reference to the mixed match challenge for a long time, and like, I don't know. I don't know what happened. I don't know where I am. Like, who
it's
am
okay,
I?
man. It's okay. It's all good. How many fingers am I holding up?
That many. But yeah, that's another thing that I regret about them probably abandoning this, because there have been a lot of good pairings that I've seen. Some of them like just make sense, like Sami Zayn and Becky Lynch. But Biggie and Carmella, like, I didn't picture those two together at all. Like, I didn't picture Carmella clicking with a New Day like she did.
Yeah.
I didn't picture Braun and Alexa being so amazing a pair. until I started seeing them in action, like in those videos leading up to their match. Like Braun teaching Alexa how to flip cars. I wasn't expecting that. And Mandy Rose and Goldust, like, they have just clicked from the second that was announced. Like, Mandy Rose teaching Goldust how to pose. Like, that was a fantastic video, because Goldust has been doing this shit a lot longer than Mandy has.
Oh, yeah.
And for, like, him to be the student in that pairing, like, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Miz and Asuka. I wouldn't have expected Miz to, like, take second billing that readily to Asuka, but like they've been firing on all cylinders too.
Sure.
Like, I just want some kind of continuity to come from this, and I sadly don't see that happening.
No, I don't either. I think it's just a way to drive up Facebook views right now. You know, talking about all that kind of surprise chemistry, throwing it back to Nakamura and Natalya, fucking Meow Kimura embracing the cat lady was possibly one of my favorite things that I've seen come out of this whole thing. And I would love for that to continue, but I don't think that's going to happen either.
Yeah. And with the mixed match challenge, I think that having that take half of 205 Live's time slot, just when 205 Live started getting really good again, I think that was a mistake. I think cannibalizing your audience like that, your own viewing space like that, I think that was a mistake. I don't know when you would do 205 or the MMC other than right after SmackDown. I don't know how they would make that work, but it had to be better than taking away 205 Live's first half hour just when they're kicking off a title tournament. I don't get it.
Yeah. It's just, it's something I've said for a while. I just feel like WWE is producing way too much content week to week, because that to me is indicative of an inevitability. I suppose you could tape it on Tuesday, but air it on Thursday, like they used to do with SmackDown. Just the mixed match challenge show, not SmackDown as a whole.
Or like the hour before SmackDown.
Yeah, but I mean that still, presents the big problem that's 2 days in a row that you're watching 3 hours of content a piece, which I mean, I've said that. I know we've gone at length about how much we don't like the running time of Raw, but I'm just going to throw it out one more time that I feel exhausted when I watch a Raw. And it's the same when I watch SmackDown and 205 back to back. I usually wait and watch 205 paired with NXT on Wednesdays if I'm going to watch it. To freaking chunk in another hour in front of SmackDown, or even a half hour, by the time Thursday comes around, I mean, that's still 10 to 11 hours of my week that I'm purely devoting to wrestling. It's tough.
That's another idea. Air the mixed match challenge in the hour before or the hour after NXT. Like, it's not like they don't have options.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. It's the matches that I've seen have not been bad, but it's the same old that they've done whenever they have the men and the women in the ring together, in that they don't actually have them in the ring together.
Right.
And
no, it should have been intergender.
Yeah.
I'm still pissed about that.
Yeah, like I absolutely would love to see Becky Lynch have an actual match with Braun Strowman. Like, I think that would be fun.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if they booked it proper, if they didn't book it like all the other, intergender matches where the guy just never takes it seriously, and
if it wasn't like Becky Lynch versus James Ellsworth, like an actual match where the two people in the ring respect each other as competitors.
Yeah. It plays. I mean, putting all the, outside the ring bullshit aside, look at, before we knew what we knew, look at how excited people were to see, chicks like Sexy Star and Ivelisse and whatever, like, be taken seriously against the men.
Yeah, dude, Evie versus... Not Matanza. Fuck. Mil Muertes.
Yeah.
That was a fucking baller match.
That was fucking great. So it's not like it doesn't play.
Yeah. Before we get into Raw, SmackDown, and the rest of the WWE programming, there were a couple of happenings over in New Japan. They just had the Road to New Beginning in Osaka shows, both on the 5th and the 6th, so the last couple of nights. And a lot of it was throwaway multi-man tag matches, but there were a few things come out of that. So, Togi Makabe, arguably the most well-known New Japan pro wrestler in Japan. Surprisingly. I don't know how, but he is. Out of his multi-man tag matches, he wound up challenging Minoru Suzuki twice for the IWGP Intercontinental title. The first night of Road 2, his team won, and that was his first challenge. Before the second match happened, he challenged Suzuki again, but he lost that match. Whereupon Suzuki told him, "Hell no, I'm not letting you get a shot." I kind of doubt that's how that's going to stand. I think Makabe will get his match with Suzuki at New Beginning in Osaka, but it would absolutely be a foregone conclusion that Suzuki would win. Makabe is well past the point of holding any titles, I feel like, and like it'll be a fun, hard-hitting match filled with fuck yous, but other than that, Suzuki wins. Suzuki Ichiban. Elsewhere, we saw a lot of interaction between Roppongi 3K and the pairing of El Desperado and Taka Michinoku. There were other figures in their multi-man matches. Rocky Romero joined his proteges for those matches, and you also had Taichi and Kanemaru. That's who the other one was. But Taka and Desperado were the two mainstays in those pairings. Roppongi 3K won both of their tag matches over night 1 and night 2, but after the second match, Suzuki-gun got fed up, and they all started beating the hell out of Roppongi. So I feel like that's where the junior tag title matches are going to go in Osaka. We're going to see Roppongi 3K defending against Taka and El Desperado. The last thing, the most important thing, the tag team of Evil and Sonata defended their heavyweight tag team titles against Okada and Goto, who are currently the reigning IWGP heavyweight champion and the never openweight champion, respectively. Evil and Sonata retained the tag titles, and for Sonata's part, he simply reiterated that he will take the title away from Okada in Osaka. He will become the IWGP heavyweight champion. For Evil's part, he talked some mad shit about Goto, and while he didn't officially challenge for it, their interactions over the last couple of weeks between these Road 2 shows and New Beginning in Sapporo, I feel like that's where Evil and Goto are going. Goto is going to have to defend the never openweight title against Evil, which is going to be a hell of a match. That is going to be one of the hardest hitting affairs I think we'll have seen in the last year. Definitely with Shibata out on the injured reserve. Those two are some of the hardest hitting dudes, some of the meanest dudes in the ring that you will find anywhere. So that's going to be a car crash of a match. But that is going to be the last show for New Japan until New Beginning in Osaka on the 10th. So, this Saturday? Yeah, this Saturday.
Yes.
So, I'm pretty stoked. I think I don't see a lot of titles changing hands. I am hopeful that Sonata takes the title away from Okada. I think Evil might take the title from Goto, although that could go either way because Goto just took the title from Suzuki. But yeah, I could see Roppongi 3K dropping the titles to Desperado and Taka just because that's kind of what happens with the junior tag titles. They get picked up and dropped all the time. Makabe, no chance in hell he takes the title from Suzuki. He just got the Intercontinental title. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a pretty fun show in Osaka. Maybe things stay pretty static, but yeah, overall, I'm definitely looking forward to it. But unless you have anything to offer on the New Japan side, any thoughts or observations
I mean, I think you covered pretty much a lot of it. I answered the question I had, which was, does Okada have a number one contender? But you said that was Sonata, um,
Yes. Mhm.
so that should be an interesting one. I honestly, before Okada drops the belt, I wouldn't mind seeing a third match between him and Kenny Omega. But considering all the stuff that happened with Omega and Cody and the Bullet Club and all that, I have a feeling we're a long way before we ever see any rematch between he and Okada. So
Yeah,
I get
I
it.
think they're treating that match that they had in the G1 Climax as their third match.
Sure.
Yes, I don't think we're going to be seeing that for a good long while yet, but
Yeah.
yeah, I could be wrong.
Sure. I mean, but I agree with you. I think it's one of those situations where it's kind of like they played that with Roman Reigns for quite a while until they just decided to give up on it. But like there's kind of this unfinished business that he has to clean up on later. But you don't know exactly when they're going to cash it in, and considering all these other distractions that are coming in the way, you feel like he's going to probably take care of that stuff first before he even puts his sights back on any sort of heavyweight title and whatnot. So
Mhm.
that's how I feel like it's going to play out. I guess kind of New Japan related. You called it. They booked Cody versus Kenny in ROH over the weekend.
Oh yeah,
So I'm
yeah,
excited as hell for that.
yeah. That's going to be fuck. What's the
it's
show?
I think it's in April, but I don't remember the name of the show.
Yeah, Super Card of Honor. It's going to be Mania weekend.
Right. Yeah. God, that I'm gonna be exhausted on wrestling that weekend.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm going to tune into that match.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah, I don't know if I'll watch the whole card, but I'm definitely going to watch that match, if nothing else.
Yeah. There is a match. Well, I take that back. This isn't for Super Card of Honor. This is for something else. But the stable that's recently formed in Ring of Honor between Christopher Daniels, Frankie Kazarian, and Scorpio Sky, SoCal Uncensored, that interests me.
Yeah.
Just because it's kind of like three older dudes that, and especially with all the hype Scorpio Sky has been getting around the indies, like in Wrestle Circus over on the West Coast, his pairing with Kevin Condren, like, and the pairing that they've made with Cage down at Wrestle Circus, like that's been something interesting to kind of watch Alpha in the background, and like that is kind of shifting into the foreground a little bit with him working Ring of Honor now. And like I've always loved Daniels and Kazarian, so just to see those three converge together, that's kind of an interesting phenomenon that I'd like to keep an eye on.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think we should go ahead and shift into WWE proper.
Sure.
Now, I didn't really watch Raw and SmackDown all that closely. I've watched clips from it. I saw some results. It felt like more of the same to me, just from what I have observed. But like, did anything strike you as significant from this week's couple of shows?
So on Raw, they first of all announced all of the participants. I'm sorry, of the women's elimination chamber. Which, if we want to do a little brief elimination chamber catch up later on in the show, we can get more into detail with that. They announced, or the Roman Reigns and The Miz have entered into the Rumble. I'm sorry, I'm still on Rumble. It just happened a couple weeks ago. I'm still kind of getting it out of my system, but they just
I think we're all coming down from that a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. So they entered into the elimination chamber. There's a Elias had won a triple threat where he is now going to officially be the sixth participant. Which, when I first digested that, I was a little confused because I thought he had already qualified. But what that means is that he will be the last person to enter into the chamber from a pod.
Oh.
And yeah, because that threw me for a loop for a little while. Then I actually got into the details of it. So
yeah, Elias that confused me because I was thinking, like, Elias has already got in. Like, what is he in a triple threat for?
Yeah, no, I felt the same way. And finally they booked next week that I think of all the really important things that caught my eye this episode. They announced that next week will be a fatal 4-way with Apollo Crews, Matt Hardy, Bray Wyatt, and as we were hoping for last week, Finn Balor have all been entered, and the winner of that match will attain the final spot, which I think is a no-brainer. It's probably going to be Finn Balor out of those four.
Yeah. I hate that Apollo Crews is once more the sacrificial lamb for whoever actually wins that match. And considering that, Hardy and Wyatt are going to have a match at Elimination Chamber, they're going to keep each other occupied throughout the course of this match.
Sure.
They'll probably have some weird team-up spot again wherein they beat on Balor and Apollo for a little while, but eventually they turn on each other. But, yeah, if Finn doesn't win this match, I don't know what's real anymore.
Yeah, agreed. So that was Raw. SmackDown wasn't too much of a development of consequence. Rusev cashed in his title opportunity against Bobby Roode, but came up short. Bobby Roode is still our U.S. champion. There was some more altercation between Shane and Daniel Bryan at the top of the show, where Daniel basically Shane basically was coming up to Daniel and saying, I think that you are essentially riding the coattails of the Yep movement and trying to live vicariously through them since you can't wrestle anymore, which of course Daniel was a little speechless for, but rebuffed. He also thought that he didn't like the decision of the winner of Sammy versus Kevin going on to face AJ. But Daniel also pointed out he thought that Shane would actually love that because that means both of them would have to tear each other apart to get to the title. That all was inconsequential, though, because by the end of the show, AJ Styles, who was on commentary after arguably being provoked by Sami Zayn, got involved in the match, and Daniel came out and officially made it a triple threat for Fastlane at, or I don't know where it's being held, but at Fastlane for the WWE Championship, which I'm pretty sure that AJ will win. Because I can't see Nakamura challenging either of the other two. It'd be cool to see Sammy versus Nakamura too, but I think people want to see AJ versus Nakamura too more.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a feeling AJ's going to win, and probably Sammy and Kevin implode and maybe have their own match lower on the card.
Yeah, because that's where the pop came from at Money in the Bank, and I don't think they ever really forgot about it.
No, I don't think so either.
Like, Sami Zayn and Nakamura had arguably the best match you've ever seen in NXT.
Yep.
And Owens and Nakamura had a few good matches while they were both still outside of the WWE. Their most recent one in Ring of Honor was especially good from what I remember. But I think people would still get excited about it just because it is Kevin Owens. But, I don't think that they would be as fired up as they always have been for AJ versus Nakamura.
Right.
So
that's a marquee
that's a smart
match.
money.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think technically speaking, a match with Nakamura and any of those three guys would be very, very good. And, in the higher echelon of 4 to 5 to arguably even 6 stars, depending on how kind Meltzer feels. But I think the money draw, the thing that pulls in like the casual to just, WrestleMania only wrestling fans would be Nakamura AJ over the other two.
Yeah.
Outside of that, nothing really of consequence happened on SmackDown. There was a couple women's matches. I think Charlotte won against, I don't remember who.
Liv Morgan.
Yeah. So that was kind of a no-brainer. Just a little bit more fallout from the Rumble. I don't think they're going to build too hard into Fastlane just yet until Elimination Chamber wraps up, because that's typically, even though they're supposed to be competing brands, that's typically how it functions. One show doesn't really heat up on their pay-per-view build until the other show's pay-per-views has passed. So Not too much extremely exciting on the SmackDown end.
Right on. In 205 Live, there were 2 tournament matches this week. Kalisto versus Lince Dorado and Hideo Itami versus Roderick Strong. We had a couple more booked for next week. We had Tony Nese versus Drew Gulak booked, and Tozawa versus, not Gallagher, Mark Andrews. That's who it was. So like, I'm looking forward to Tozawa versus Mandrews because I don't think they've ever worked together. I really love watching both of them in the ring. Gulak versus Nese should be fun. I think there'll be more of a more storyline there. Former Zotrain buddies. Gulak kind of, I don't know what the term would be, but kind of like pulled the trigger on Nese being kicked out of the Zotrain. And then they just kind of forgot about it when Nese rejoined. But yeah, next week should be pretty good. This week was an interesting show. The match they put on to close out the show was whatever. And it was weird in that Roddy went over, which I don't know why. I don't really like it either, because I don't get why Roderick Strong is a cruiserweight, because they've had him go after the top title in NXT on a few different occasions. And I just don't like that you had Itami handle Gallagher so well, and then he gets knocked out of the first round by some guy fresh out of NXT. Yeah. He's not up from NXT that long ago himself, but he was so heralded. He was so hyped up. And then Roderick Strong just gets thrown into this tournament with no fanfare whatsoever, and Roddy wins? I don't get it. I really don't think Itami's going to be around this time next year, because this keeps happening to him. They keep pulling the rug out from under him. They keep overlooking him. And if this had been 6 to 8 months ago when he was still fresh off of injury, I could get that, because you're not sure with him. But he's been doing pretty well, keeping himself safe, like protecting himself, using up different finishers, and overall handling himself pretty well. But you have him lose a nothing rivalry to Cassius Ohno, and then this. And prior to that, he was set up a couple of times for a shot at the NXT title, but that didn't go anywhere. I don't know how much longer a dude like Itami takes that and sticks around for it, especially when you've got guys like Austin Aries and other guys like that doing well elsewhere. That guy, Tommy's got a little bit of an ego to him, with history being an indicator. I don't see him swallowing that for much longer. Sure,
I would definitely agree. Roddy being on 205 Live is an odd choice. I will say, Itami, I don't think he ever had a full-on one-on-one match for the NXT title, but I think he was considered in contention. But that's kind of a frivolous point, because there is only one singles title for the men in NXT. Not that I'm complaining or anything. I think that's the perfect amount of titles that they have. But
Roderick Strong has had more actual title matches than Hideo Itami, and that's fucked up.
Sure, that's also egregious. But yeah, Roddy's just a weird placement. I didn't think his time in NXT was quite done yet. But I guess they figure they gotta fill the void that has been left. But
the cruiserweight roster is a little thin. Like, not just with Enzo, but like Noam Dar's hurt. There's a couple of other injuries.
Right. No Neville and so on and so forth. It's a real shame too, because first of all, putting Hideo, I know his weight class was fine in the cruiserweight division, but I was definitely holding out hope that we may get to down the road, far, far from now. But had he, had he not been plagued with injuries back when he was first signed, and then after hearing that when Nakamura was first signed, I was really looking forward to that dream match, honestly. And once he got put into the cruiserweight division, I felt like that's all that the WWE were ever going to see him as a cruiserweight. And they don't typically like to mingle see Apollo Crews never teaming with Tozawa, the heavyweights with the Cruiserweights, unless your name's Goldust for some weird odd reason.
Yeah.
So that, I mean, I was already kind of disappointed, but this kind of treatment definitely kind of seems that there's always a chance, but it sure seems to really shoot down any possibility of that. Because as I know, at least, and I haven't done a shit ton of research on it, but Kenta and Nakamura never really mixed it up anywhere in Japan. I think they had like a handful of like tag matches, but never anything one-on-one. And I
don't think they've ever really wrestled together.
Yeah, I think that would have been a huge get for WWE, to be honest.
Yeah, Itami never went to New Japan, and Nakamura, to my recollection, never really stepped out of New Japan. Not as far as pro wrestling goes.
Yeah. So that, I think that could have been a huge dream match that it seems like with each passing decision that they pass over Hideo, is getting farther and farther away from a possibility, at least within the realm of WWE. Though I would definitely argue that while I think they've misfired a couple of times on Shinsuke too, it sure seems like they have much grander plans for him, and I don't know if he would ever consider leaving at this point. A lot of things can change over the course of a year, but it sure doesn't seem likely at this stage.
Yeah, Nakamura, there was never going to be a situation where they didn't treat Nakamura like a big star.
Yeah.
Treat him the same as guys like Ambrose? Sure. They still market Dean Ambrose as a big star.
Oh, yeah.
But they have these nothing angles for guys like Ambrose where they put him against Dolph Ziggler, or they stick him against The Miz for 10 months and don't really give them anything to work with.
Right.
But there was never going to be a situation where Nakamura wasn't going to be given that praise, that hype, that treatment. Sure. With Itami, he was always going to have to work for it a little harder because Pro Wrestling Noah, like their glory days are behind them.
I mean, in fairness, they gave him a shit ton of fanfare when he was signed. You know, I think also
that was done in NXT, and they didn't talk about it like in their main news the way they did with Nakamura.
That's also a fair point.
Yeah, Itami just never was as high profile as that. Like, for as innovative as he's always been, he just never reached those heights because he never got in on the same floor as Nakamura did. Like, when Nakamura came in, he came in with Tanahashi, and like Tanahashi took New Japan to new places. Like, he kept them afloat single-handedly, and Nakamura was building up right behind him. And Itami, like, he was a big deal in Noah, but the biggest deals were Kobashi and Misawa and whatever other veterans they wanted to book then. Like, Itami was always playing second fiddle to them in a promotion that was playing second fiddle to both New Japan and All Japan. So, yeah, unfortunately, he's always had that little bit of a deck stacked against him. But now, if you think that New Japan wouldn't love the chance to do to WWE what the WWE did to them with AJ and Nakamura, then you're out of your fucking mind.
Oh, yeah. No,
I imagine they would love to snap up a Tommy.
Sure. I only mean, it just seems with the passage of time that the likelihood that we will see the two of them square off one-on-one, it grows farther and farther apart.
Oh, yeah.
Is a huge shame, I think.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of people that would love to see a Tommy versus Nakamura in some realm, myself included.
Yeah.
The other match that took place on 205 Live, on the other hand, was probably the most lucha match. To quote Matthew of Botchamania, the most lucha match WWE's ever had, and that's going all the way back. That match was lucha as fuck, and not just because Kalisto kept yelling lucha. There's a top rope Hurricane Rana. Kalisto stood on Lindsay's shoulders for like 2 seconds out of nowhere, apropos of absolutely nothing, just because he could. Kalisto pulled out the reverse Rana spot that he used to do on the indies, and that it was a botch of the highest caliber in that move absolutely did not get pulled off correctly, but at least Lindsay didn't get hurt because of it. So it wasn't that bad a botch in the grand scheme of things, but like it was exactly what you'd expect watching a AAA show. Just all kinds of high spots and just fast paced action and shit not making sense. And it was a ton of fun to watch. I legitimately don't know why they didn't close out the show. The crowd was actually into that match. And it's Kalisto and Lince Dorado, like two guys that crowd has not typically been behind all that much. Barring this recent incarnation of the Lucha House Party along with Grand Metal Week. So to see that, and you know, with the rumors that Triple H has taken over the show from Vince, like it has been feeling more like the Cruiserweight Classic. It has been feeling a little NXT-ish. And like, I want to keep seeing matches like that. I would love to see the wrestlers hit their moves 100% all the time and not have a risk that instead of landing his head on Kalisto's ass, he instead lands it on the mat and hurts himself. But, you know, this time it went okay. And I would love to see more lucha. I'd love to see more like Dragon Gate style wrestling. I'd love to see more wrestling.
Oh, I agree.
But that was pretty much it for 205 Live. I don't know how much stock I put in the news that Triple H has taken over from Vince, but there has been a departure from that dumb kind of character-driven storytelling that had been going on when Enzo was the face of the place, and it was the Zo Train versus everybody else. So I'm for it.
Sure. I mean, yeah, I think this tournament going on is very much like a Cruiserweight Challenge Part 2, you know, which, as far as I know, Triple H and probably a few of his buddies booked. If we're doing that again, I'm all for it. I think that's a smart way to go. I think, honestly, I will never, despite all the differences that I may have with the man, I will never, ever claim that you know, or never disrespect that Vince McMahon has done so much for this business. But I think it's very similar to, you know, active wrestlers having to come to grips with the fact that they just can't hang anymore. And I think Vince's style of storytelling, which I think has permeated creative, particularly on Raw, for years and years and years, is just, it's too stagnant. And I mean, it's not that the guy never has a good idea ever, but sure has been a long time since we got one of those from him. So, I mean, I think it's to his detriment to continually, and I know it's not going to change regardless of what I say, but I think it's to his and the company's detriment that he continues to have such a chokehold on creative decisions for so long a time. I mean, and it's just been proven over and over again. Anything you've seen in NXT, any of the challenges, anything that Triple H has booked since he's been given more, you know, credence in the company has been widely successful, and most of the fans are into it. So why in SmackDown even, which I don't even think Triple H has touched, I think that's been mostly a Shane McMahon baby, you know, has still been wildly better, even in its lowest points, than anything Raw has produced in the last 2 years plus. So why do you continue to buck the system? You're killing your most precious baby. You know, we all know that Vince has looked at Raw as his prize jewel of the WWE forever, and you're slowly but surely killing it by continuing to, you know, have booking decisions be the way they are. It proves itself over and over and over again.
I think it's strongly telling that there hasn't been a star born on Vince's watch since Cena, and Cena would have been fired if somebody hadn't just happened to hear him rapping backstage. So
yeah,
that easily could have been pissed away, and then it would have been, there hasn't been a star born since The Rock. And Vince can't claim credit for Stone Cold because Stone Cold took matters into his own hands with that 316 promo.
I would even give The Rock more credit than Vince for The Rock, because at first it was Rocky Maivia, and that was a hands-on Vince original. And then The Rock said, "You know what? Fuck off. You guys don't like me. I don't like you either." And that skyrocketed. I'm sure Vince will still try to take credit for it, but it wasn't his idea for The Rock.
Yeah.
I mean, he just comes with shit off the dome that's I don't think anybody could have done, at least at the time.
Yeah, with that in mind, the guy that Vince might be able to take credit for the most would be Kurt Angle.
Yeah.
Kurt Angle didn't have any not any pro wrestling background, and he was built entirely within that system. So I think that's his biggest claim to fame. And Angle spent more time elsewhere than in the WWE. So
yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. It's again, no. It's like, to me, it's always been once you get to that, and I think Stone Cold has said that on his podcast. Many others have said that on their podcast. Once you get to that point where Vince McMahon feels like you can stand shoulder to shoulder with him, then it's off to the races. Because the most successful Kurt Angle things were like, you know, him and Stone Cold vying for Vince's attention, and, you know, his at least potential run leading into WWCW at the time, and, you know, his first year in the company, which, while I'm sure Vince had a hand in those things, it was Kurt Angle's charisma, the same with The Rock's charisma, Stone Cold's charisma, you know, arguably even John Cena's charisma that eventually got them over with the fans. Mm-hmm. At best, Vince has given people chances, and not to say that every single chance he's given has been a dud, but dude, it's been a long time since one of those big ass sparks has fucking come into your brain.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a knock on you. I know you look at it as a weakness, but, you know, eventually everybody hangs it up. Everybody. There's nobody that gets out of it, you know, completely unscathed. So
yeah. His biggest spark of late has been, let's do the XFL again. That'll work. We have 2 years this time to get ready.
Yeah. I was saying that over, not to take this too far away from wrestling, but I was saying that over my viewership of the Super Bowl. If they went full bore with it and legitimately made it like the football version of Slam Ball or something, where it incorporated a lot more wrestling moves, I would be 100% into it. But I don't think that's what they're going to do at all. So whatever.
No. There will never be anything funnier than Vince telling a reporter over the phone that sitting down for 3 hours for an NFL game is a somewhat laborious process, just completely straight-faced.
Yeah. So take advantage of it, bro. Have the players cut angles on each other. Drop some power bombs here or there. Do something different.
No, that's never going to happen. No.
I know it's not. It's not.
Just one final bit of WWE stuff as relates to Elimination Chamber, which is taking place on the 18th, I want to say. Let me make sure my math is correct. The 25th, I was a week off. But we have 3 matches officially booked. The Men's Chamber, as was previously alluded to, Elias versus John Cena versus Braun Strowman versus Roman Reigns versus The Miz versus Finn Balor. Better fucking be Finn Balor. The Women's Chamber match, Alexa Bliss will be defending her Raw Women's Championship against Sasha Banks, Bayley, Mickie James, Mandy Rose, and Sonya Deville. And we're also going to have Nia Jax taking on Asuka. The winner of that match will get a match at WrestleMania, or she will be in the title. Correct me if I'm wrong. They'll definitely be at Mania. I think it's for a title spot.
So is it? I think I might have missed that in Raw this week. Is Asuka basically putting up her Rumble spot?
I think so.
Okay, Asuka.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know if I picked up on that as well. I wouldn't be surprised. They do that pretty often around this time of year, but it's always a pretty foregone conclusion. So
yeah, it's not like they actually did anything definitive at the Rumble so that they had to go back on it. So.
Yeah, I think the only time that was ever really full on put at risk was Orton versus Mysterio, and fucking both of them ended up in the match anyway. So
yeah. Oh, okay. I'm looking back at the results on WWE's homepage, and if Nia wins the match with Asuka at Elimination Chamber, Nia's being added to the title match. So it would be Asuka versus
that's
Nia
interesting.
versus whoever wins the chamber.
That is very interesting. I don't think Nia's going to win, but if she does, that would be. What if? I mean, okay, so I guess it's still so Asuka chooses who Nia Jax might compete with, because that's an interesting thing.
Well, no,
Because Asuka still hasn't chosen
actually,
yet,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, Asuka hasn't said. Yeah, what a fucking time to not watch Raw right now.
I don't think she said on Raw. I think they make a bigger deal of that.
I don't see anything in the results, but
that being the case, I really doubt that Nia would win. But on the off chance she does, that'd be a very interesting thing, because it's like now Asuka has, for better or worse, a tag along depending on where she wants to go. I'm pretty positive Asuka's going to challenge for the Raw title anyway.
Yeah.
But still, that's just an interesting concept to toy with.
Yeah, I imagine Nia will win this. Let me take a step back. If Nia wins, Alexa wins. And I think the reverse holds true.
The final payoff.
Yeah, because like the way they're telling this story, Alexa has no chance in hell against Asuka one-on-one. With Nia in the mix, maybe that's the thing she needs to take down Asuka. Sure. Maybe that's just two monsters for Alexa to run away from screaming.
Yeah. Or maybe they take each other out and Alexa stands tall at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. That's where I'm betting personally.
Sure.
But yeah, we will see. Because we still have like 2.5 weeks until the Elimination Chamber.
Right. I mean, honestly, I don't see anyone else outside of Alexa. Just again, before we see further developments, I don't see anyone else entered into this women's rumble or women's chamber. Fuck. I don't see anyone else walking away with the title here. I mean, it's definitely not going to be Mandy or Sonya, so we could take those out immediately. It's not going to be Mickey. As much as I'd love it to be Bayley, it's definitely not going to be Bayley. So that just leaves Sasha. And while it's possible, because WWE is still so high on her, that it could be Sasha walking out with the title, I think Bliss is a better champion for Asuka and or Nia to challenge. So, I mean, I think it's kind of a foregone conclusion anyway that Bliss walks out with the title. But I could be wrong. It's happened to me many times before. Go look at the Facebook pick results.
I'd love to write off the possibility that Sasha would win this chamber match, but you're raising way too many salient points about, one, the WWE being really high on her, and two, Sasha didn't win the Rumble, so they're gonna give her something.
Possible.
Fuck.
It is possible. I mean, it's not going to say that she doesn't have a match at Mania. I think she will.
Yeah.
But I don't know if she'll be involved with the title.
Yeah, I don't know. Then again, Sasha and Asuka did face off, and Asuka beat her, so...
I mean, the better narrative would be Bayley getting another shot at Asuka.
Yeah, because they really love that rivalry.
Yeah.
Even though, like, but Asuka's shown pretty definitively there's no room for rivalry at all, because Bayley's never beaten her.
Right. But Bayley's been treated so fucking poorly that, I mean, it would take so much reconstructive surgery to make that feud work by Mania, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Although, much like gambling, all it takes is a chip and a chance, so...
Yeah.
I'd love to be proven wrong, honestly.
Real talk, I would kind of love it if Mandy won this chamber match and they legit built her up to be another Trish Stratus. Like, not just in appearance, but in, like, treating her legitimately. Because that woman has come a long way from, like, Tough Enough and her first NXT run to then all the house shows she did, all the work that she's put into becoming a pretty decent wrestler. And she is a physical beast, too.
I think it's going to take a lot more on camera time before the public sees her that way. More time than it would take to get to Mania, I think. But, I mean, I'm not going to say I'd be opposed to it either. The Raw division right now is pretty much just champion and throw a dart at a dartboard as to who challenges them right now. So if we could have stronger competition, I'd be totally into that.
Yeah, Paige being out of commission has kind of thrown that division into disarray, I think. Because I I imagined Paige was like the next person that they were going to throw at Asuka. And
that would have been
in retrospect,
cool.
I'm kind of glad that didn't happen, knowing what we know now. But somebody's got to step up out of Absolution, so
that's
I don't
right.
see it being Sonya.
We do, as you bring up, we used to have the looming shadow of Ronda Rousey and what she will be doing at Mania. So,
yeah.
Who knows?
I have seen added to the dock the possibility of the Revival versus the Club.
Mm-hmm. I've just noticed that they've been squaring off a lot in the past couple weeks. So I'm not saying I'm not saying that match is necessary. But I can at the very least see it being like some sort of kickoff filler or something, which is honestly very unfortunate because both teams deserve main roster credit, but they're just not being treated as so. And especially the fucking Revival. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I know we talked about this with Tommy, and WWE is totally against, several injuries in a row and all that stuff. I understand that, but like, it's the fucking Revival, man. Like, they don't deserve that. They just don't. Like,
yeah. Unlike Tommy, those two guys were given the ball to run with, and they fucking ran with it. They ran laps around the field, scoring touchdowns all over the place.
I mean, when you get fucking no lead-in praise from Edge and Christian, arguably, one of the better tag teams of at least the Attitude Era, and how much they're like, Ole and Arn and all that stuff, and bringing back the satin jackets. And it's not just to set aside their wrestling ability for a moment, which is amazing, how dedicated they were to their characters and how they were bringing that like old school, like 70s beat the shit out of you fucking wrestling mentality to their characters. I mean, I don't know what else to say to give them any higher praise. Like, that's incredible. Especially, from guys like Edge and Christian, who have labored under the business, who from day one have been like the purest heart of fans, who have watched as much wrestling as they could get their hands on, How do you shit the bed with those guys? I don't get it.
WWE always finds a way.
Yeah, apparently. To my shock and horror every time.
Yeah, I feel like we're not going to be seeing a shift in the title picture until after Elimination Chamber, because it seems like Finn and Seth are working together on live events against the Bar. I hope to God. I hope to anything that does not become the title match at the Chamber. I hope that's just them covering live events because Jason is out.
They're both part of opposing fucking trios. Why?
Because God forbid they use Seth as a singles talent right now.
Yeah, God forbid continuity too.
That wouldn't make any kind of sense.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know.
I mean, it's been on camera that those two trios, arguably because Anderson wasn't there. I mean, not Anderson. Ambrose. There we go. Yeah. But still, like, the line has been drawn. If Ambrose could have been there, he would have been.
Yeah, you teased it with kind of Shield, and now you have to make good with real Shield once everybody's back in action.
Right.
But, yeah, maybe they don't defend the tag titles at the Chamber. Maybe
it's possible.
that just doesn't happen.
It's possible. I mean, at worst, I could see them doing like a triple threat with the Bar, the Club, and the Revival. That's a lot of those. But I don't know. It's entirely possible. I mean, outside of those three teams, who else is in the division? Apollo and Titus, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think that's it.
Goldust and Mandy Rose.
No, that's not going to happen. I would love it, but that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Besides, she's already in the Chamber, right? So they're not going to double book. They're not going to double book the Chamber.
No, they're not.
They'll double book the Rumble, but they're not going to double book the Chamber.
Yeah, I don't think there really is anybody else.
Yeah.
I mean, unless
maybe AOP
Jeff is secretly
shows up?
healthy.
Maybe AOP shows up in the next coming weeks. Possible. I'd be 100% down with AOP versus Bar in any time. Now,
an
Mania,
elimination
whenever.
chamber would be the venue to debut AOP.
Yeah, that's true.
But I feel like then I would want them in the chamber.
Yeah,
I feel like I would just be disappointed by an AOP debut at Elimination Chamber and they're not in the chamber match.
Here's what happens. The match starts, and then like Ellering just starts gesturing to like the Titantron and lowering the cage anyway. Like it's not an official chamber match, but they
come down from the ceiling in a shark cage.
Yeah, that'd be fucking great. That'd be fucking great.
That'd be hilarious. That would be so bad, but I would laugh my ass off.
I don't even know if you could fit the both of them in a shark cage. Oh wait, no, they did. They did on War Games. That's right.
Oh yeah. That was a tight fit, but they managed it.
They managed it.
Yeah, I don't know what you do with the tag division.
I think we've reached the same road that WWE has.
I mean, unless you take the beanbags approach and just have the Usos win all the tag titles.
Not opposed to that.
No, not really. On that bombshell, though, I think that's all we got for this week's show. Kind of a shorter installment after the marathon runs we've been having. Yeah,
I mean, if we're not really doing wins and fails anymore, but I would call that a win.
Yeah?
I'm sure the Fans Talk faithful are like, oh, thank God, not another 3 hours.
Fucking finally, these goddamn windbags.
I'm 100% guilty of that. I'm raising my hand. Total windbag.
Yeah, but with that in mind, this is where we're going to close out the show. So you can find us at fanstalkpodcast.com. That is our homepage. That is our hub for everything we do. You can find the archive there. You can also find links to our Facebook group as well as our Discord chat, which is where we hold live chats for both this show, any other show we do, and on big events like the upcoming Elimination Chamber, we also have live chats there. So if you want to talk with somebody and just react to what you're seeing as the chamber matches unfold, you want to have a place to kind of share your feelings about Elias being broken in half or Braun doing a 450 splash off the top of the pod, like that's where you can do it. You can also find us on Twitter at Fanstalk Podcast. You can send us topics you'd like to discuss there. From what's going on in wrestling, use the hashtag AskFTPW. Also, if you consume the show through any podcatchers like Apple Podcasts or Stitcher, or if you listen through an app like SoundCloud or TuneIn Radio, please leave us a rating, leave us a review, leave us any form of feedback that you can on those platforms. Let us know what you like, what you didn't like. If you like this week's shorter show, or if you prefer those marathon 3-hour sessions, that would be a great place to let us know how you feel. Next week, there's going to be more Elimination Chamber build. There will probably also be some bubbling up of Fastlane that's going to be happening in March. But until then, for Adam, the absent Garvin, everybody in the live chat, both absent and not absent, my name is Nick. I am always absent, in spirit if not in reality. And we'll see you next time here on Fans Talk Pro Wrestling. Good night, y'all.